So Cathy, given your experience, your extensive experience, leading a corporate giant like Deloitte and a historic sports league like the WNBA, as a leader, how do you approach the unique challenges and opportunities when it comes to empowering women?
Yeah, it's a great question, but I'll start with it's great to be here. I feel the vibe, and thank you for those that are coming to the Mystics game tonight. We're excited to host you. Well, first, a lot of people ask me, like, why did you take this job after 33 years at Deloitte? So I will say, Renee, going from a firm of 100,000 people to a league of 144 players was a little shock to the system. What I learned pretty quickly about sports is that, and by the way, one of the reasons I took the job, my father was drafted into the NBA in 1957 by the Detroit Pistons. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
And then he had a
But
profession.
he never played, and this is why. Guess what his starting salary was at Detroit Pistons training camp in 1957? Anyone want to throw out guesses? $5,000. $520.
Yeah, I was going to say
All right.
2,000.
$950. And he got a job with RCA, you remember that company?
Yeah.
Where he worked in early IT for a NASA contract for RCA, and he ended up working there for 30 years. He's passed away now, but he never played because what did NBA players do back then? They all had other jobs, you know?
Yeah.
They all had other jobs. So, but anyway, huge passion for the game. I got recruited for lacrosse. I was a walk-on for basketball, and go to Deloitte right out of college. And literally, I think it was when 2% of the partners at Deloitte were women. It was a huge, well, I grew up with 5 brothers, by the way, so I grew up in a family of 8, 5 brothers. That drove my competitiveness. And then I went to a college that was 4 male to 1 female, called Lehigh University. It's an engineering school back then, principally. I was the only woman in my freshman English class. So then I joined a profession that's 2% women at the leadership level. And you might say, like, okay, so then 33 years later, or 27 years later, you become the first female CEO in their history. And it's kind of interesting. No female had even interviewed to become CEO. Not even interviewed. And there's like a 12-person panel of senior partners who interviews for CEOs. And there were 3 men up for it that year. We all knew who they were. And all of a sudden, I got a call 2 weeks before they literally were going to do the interviews of the other 3. And they said, like, Cathy, we'd like you to interview for CEO. And what was my reaction? Who, me? Like, as far as Deloitte had come at that point, and Deloitte was one of the first to have an initiative for the advancement and retention of women, because we were doing fine advancing women, we just weren't retaining them, particularly when they got into their 30s and family. And I actually resigned from the firm after I had my first child because I said, I don't think I can do all of this. And I'm a big believer, talk about women's empowerment and the question in, you know, everyone says, can you have it all as a woman and raise a family? And I'm like, can you do it all as defined by you? Because have it all is defined by someone else. Doing it all is defined by you is what's important. So the first thing I did when I became the CEO is I was down here in DC on Mother's Day of 2015, and I was being interviewed on Meet the Press. Now, first of all, I didn't realize how many people watch Meet the Press. A lot of people watch Meet the Press. There's Chuck Todd, I know he's retired now or close to retiring, and he asked me about our maternity leave at Deloitte. And I had taken 2 of them, and I mumbled something, blah, blah, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, family medical leave, blah, blah, blah. And I was like embarrassed. I said, here's a progressive firm that's been at this women's thing for a long term. I can't even answer the question. And so what we did is we put together what I called a people first agenda, because at Deloitte, like here, people were our main asset. We didn't make widgets. We didn't make pharmaceutical products. We were about people and serving clients. And so I called my head of talent at the time, chief people officer at the time, and said, Mike, I just got interviewed on Meet the Press. I'm totally embarrassed on national television about our leave policy. And he said, oh, Cathy, don't worry. I have this, you know, great timing. We've been thinking about putting together a 16-week family leave policy, 24 weeks for the birth mother, but 16 weeks for anyone, male or female, for any issue, sick parent, sick child, you know, not just paternity, maternity leave. So I said, great, get it on my desk. A year later, and then first year CEO, I get involved with a lot of other things. A year later, Mother's Day comes along. Not on Meet the Press this time, but I call Mike, where's my progressive family leave policy? Oh, the Talent Council rejected it. The operating committee rejected it. It was too expensive. I said, well, what does our 8-week policy today cost? Oh, like some big number, 40 million, which I said, oh, nobody did any work while I was gone on my 2 maternity leaves, so I don't believe that number, but send me the spreadsheet. And they sent me the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet was flawed in one manner. It assumed a replacement hire for everyone that would go out on a family leave. And I said, that's just not what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it was this huge number, obviously in a workforce of 100,000 people, and my conclusion was no spreadsheet ever yielded a good answer for women or people. And I said, you know, and I was the CPA accountant CEO, you know, but I said, like, this is wrong. This is the right thing to do. A couple months later, we announced a, you know, progressive at the time, back in 2016, 16-week family leave, 24 for the birth mother. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I felt like a little bit like Abraham Lincoln, you know, when his whole cabinet was against him. I felt a little like that, like everybody was against me. And guess what? When they announced it, who was all hailed as the heroes? All those people who had rejected it. Mm-hmm. And I was just fine with that. Mm-hmm. I was just fine with that because it was the right thing to do. And so to your point, it built a culture then of inclusivity, not just of females, males too. Females were happy, our men were happy, and it just then gave us a real strong trust factor with our people. And so then I come to the WNBA, and you have to find like a few small things of symbolic value when you become a new leader, especially you go to a new organization like I went to, going from 100,000 to 144, and I had 12 people working at the WNBA at the time. So, you know, and look, the WNBA, like, we are the most diverse league in sports. We are a microcosm of broader society. So I didn't have to come in and change a lot of policies. I had to come in and build an economic model that didn't exist. Teams are losing money, the league was losing money, they hadn't grown in 4 years, it had flat revenue growth. And so, you know, again, doing a few things, small things of symbolic values with players to get them to trust you. We then hit a pandemic, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about all that, and a racial crisis in this country again, and it just, you know, everything took off from there to land us in this moment now where we have huge momentum.